We'll see. Are we ready? Well, good morning. How are you this morning? Good, good. This morning, we're going to continue on with creation. Heretofore, we've gone through about the first 20 chapters of Genesis. And today, I thought we would look a little bit at some of the lineage of Adam and Eve, just for a second, and then we'll get into the lesson. The lesson today is going to be about Jacob and Esau. And we're down to about the 24th chapter of Genesis. Let's see if I can make things work here. There we go. I don't know if you can read that or not. But we started with Adam and Eve, and they had 3 sons, Cain and Abel, as you remember, and Seth. And the lineage comes down from Seth, was the parent of Noah. And we had the flood, and things changed greatly. But then Noah had 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And the lineage came down from Seth to Abraham. And you'll remember that Abraham married Rebekah, and they were old, like me. I mean, they were really old. A lot of things going on here. Abraham and Sarah were well into their 90s, and the Lord promised them a son, and his name was Isaac. And Isaac married Rebekah. And if you'll remember, Abraham and Sarah was barren for years. And the Lord blessed them with Isaac. The same thing happened with Isaac and a lot of things going on here. The same thing happened with Isaac and Rebekah. Rebekah was barren and couldn't have children. And Isaac prayed to the Lord, and Rebekah became pregnant with twins. And those twins were Jacob and Esau. And then the lineage continues through Jacob. He married Rachel. Rachel and Leah. And from Leah came the 12 tribes of Israel. So you can see that the lineage is coming down towards us each generation. There's one thing about it. When we started up here with Adam and Eve, there was no sin in the world. There was also no people. And as the people became greater, sin did as well. The more people, the more sin. Carries right on down through the earth today. My opinion, that there's as much sin now as there was back then. So the people grew, but sin grew as well. And the reading's going to be very long today, but it's the story of Jacob and Esau. As you'll remember, this is in Genesis 25. We're going to read from 19 through the end of and then we're going to read a few verses in 26. This is the account of Abraham's son, Isaac. Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Beluth, the Aramean, from Pandam, Arab, and sister of Lam, the Aramean. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren. The Lord answered his prayers, and his wife, Rebekah, became pregnant. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire to the Lord. And the Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." We'll come back to this, but they have said a great deal right here about Jacob and Esau. Two nations and two peoples, and one will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first two came out. The first one that came out was red, and his whole body was hairy. So they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasped on Esau's heel. So he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to him. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter of the open country, while Jacob was a quiet man, staying among his tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau. Another key point, there was much dissension in the family of Jacob. His father favored him. But Rebekah loved Jacob. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country, famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." That's why he is also called Edom. Jacob replied, "First sell me your birthright." "Look, I'm about to die," Esau said. "What good is the birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear on to me first." So he swore on an oath, selling him his birthright to Jacob. Jacob gave Esau some stew, some bread, some lentil stew, and he ate and drank, and when he got up and left, so Esau despised his birthright. This is the beginning of the conflict between the two brothers. Now, continuing on in chapter 26, now there was a famine in the land, beside the earlier famine of Arab's time, and Isaac went to Abimelech, the king of the Philistines, in Gur. The Lord appeared to Isaac and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land where I tell you to live. Stay in this land for a while, and I will bless you. For you and your descendants, I will give all these lands, and will confirm the oath I swore to your father, Abraham. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and I'll give them all these lands, and through your offsprings, all nations on earth will be blessed." That's a pretty bold statement. Because Abraham obeyed me and kept my requirements and my commandments, my decrees and my laws, so Isaac stayed in Ger. Now, if we remember from a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Babylon. It's in this area here. And the land of Canaan is over here. When the Lord told Isaac to go to Ger, it was in this area here. Now, there's another story. When Isaac went to Ger, he lived with his uncle Lahan, which is a descendant of Lot. And Lahan had 2 daughters. And back in those days, you just didn't marry a girl. You had to pay for her. And then like today, you keep paying for the rest of your life. But the deal that Isaac made was, I will work for you for 7 years. And so Lamb thought this was a good deal. Isaac was a good, I'm calling Jacob Isaac. Jacob made the deal with Lamb, and he worked for 7 years. And when it came time to marry, Lamb brought out his first daughter, Rebekah, and gave her to Jacob. So he deceived Jacob. And then he told Jacob that if you want the other daughter, the one which Jacob really loved, Rebekah, you work for 7 more years. And evidently Jacob was a very good herdsman because the flocks grew and they did very, very well. And at the end of the second 7 years, he did give Rebekah in marriage. Now there was a problem. If that's not enough problems, there was a greater problem. When Rebekah was the sister, the older sister, she is the one that had all the sons. And Rachel had no sons. When they were born, Esau stole his brother's birthright. And you'll remember the story about when Isaac was about to die. His mother brought him in, brought Esau in. And she brought in Jacob. And they deceived Isaac to giving Jacob. They deceived Isaac and gave Jacob the blessing. More bad blood between the twins. Isaac loved loved Esau. Rebekah was more partial to Jacob. There was much dissension within the family. When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he opened her womb, and Rachel was barren. Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said, "It's because of the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me." She conceived again. And when she gave birth to a son, she said, "Because the Lord has heard that I am not loved, he gave me one too. So gave me this one. His name is Simon." Again she conceived. And when she gave birth to a son, she said, "Now at least my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons." So she named him Levi. She conceived again. And when she gave birth to a son, "This time I will praise the Lord," she said. So she named him Judah. Then she stopped having children. Isaac had told them, the king, the Philistine king, that Rebekah was his sister. And the king found out. The king asked Isaac why he had lied to him. And he said, because Rebekah was a very beautiful person, that he was afraid that the local people would kill him. But here again, we see that sin has grown. And God used an unlikely man, the Philistine king, to uncover the real truth. But we see that sin is continuing to grow throughout the world at that time. Leah, folks, Leah's focus changed. She was not loved by Jacob. He favored Rebekah. And she switched her allegiance through the dysfunction of the Lord and began to create a great nation. From her lineage, the tribe of Judah will eventually come down. Though Leah's story, we see that God is gracious, loving, and cares deeply for his children. We also see that a broken family is not enough to disrupt God's plan to bring salvation to the world. Jacob's family was filled with dysfunction. Jacob and Esau had death threats for each other. Jacob had stolen Esau's birthright and his inheritance. And even though that Jacob favored Rebekah, Leah is the one that had all the sons that continued the lineage. And through the tribe of Judah, we would eventually see Jesus come through and redeem the world. If you will, we're going to skip over a chapter or two to chapter 32. And this is another story about Jacob. But we'll start back in verse 4. Jacob had instructed, "This is what you are to say to my master Esau." Jacob is traveling back to meet Esau, and there is a lot of dissension here. Your servant Jacob says, I will have been staying with Laban and have remained there until now. I have cattle, donkeys, sheep, and goats, men servants and maid servants. Now I am sending the message to my Lord that I may find favor in your eyes. When the messengers returned to Jacob, they said, "We went to your brother Esau, and now he is coming to meet you with 400 men are with him." In great fear and distress, Jacob divided the people with him into two groups, and the flock and the herds and the camels as well. He thought, if Esau comes and makes one group, the group that is left may escape. Then Jacob prayed, "O God, my father of Abraham, God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, 'Go back to your country and your relatives. I will make you prosperous. I am unworthy of all the kindness and full faithfulness you have shown your servant. I had only my staff when I crossed the Jordan, but now I have become two groups. Save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid he will come and attack me, and also my mothers with their children. But you have said, I will surely make you prosperous, and will make your descendants like the sand of the seas, which cannot be counted. He spent the night in the camp, and from there he selected a gift for his brother Esau, 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, and 20 rams, 30 female camels, and 10 bulls, and 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. He put them in care of his servants, each herd by itself, and said to the servants, go ahead of me and keep some space between you and me. He instructed the one in the lead, when my brother Esau meets you and asks to whom you belong and where we are going, and who owns all these animals in front of you, then you are to say, they belong to your servant Jacob. They are a great gift to my lord Esau, and he is coming behind us. He also instructed the second and third and all the others who followed the herds. You are to say the same thing to Esau when you meet him. And be sure to say, your servant Jacob is coming behind us, for he thought, I will pacify him with these gifts, and I'm sending on ahead later. When I see him, perhaps he will receive me. So Jacob's gifts went ahead of him, but he himself stayed in the camp. Now right here's where the story changes. Jacob has split everything he's got and sent it on ahead. And he stayed behind in the camp. A very interesting phenomenon is about to happen. That night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives and his 2 sons and crossed the ford in the Jabbok. After he had sent them across the stream, he sent over all his possessions. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled him until daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hips, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, let me go, for it's daybreak. But Jacob replied, I will not let you go unless you bless me. The man asked him, what is your name? And Jacob answered. Then the man said, your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have overcome. Jacob said, please tell me your name. But he replied, why do you ask my name? Then he blessed him there. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, it is because I have saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared. The sun rose up above him as he passed Peniel, and as he was limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, Israelites do not eat the tendon attached to the socket of the hip, because the socket of Jacob's hip was touched by the tendon. Jacob wrestled with his brothers before he was born. Jacob had swindled his brothers. Also, Jacob had sort of swindled his father-in-law, Laban. He had crossbred the calves and the goats and the sheep so that the best ones came to him when they split the herds. This stranger that Jacob wrestled with all night is highly unusual. Why would God wrestle with a man? Jacob asked for his blessings, and God changed his name to Israel. And from that point on, Jacob was a changed man. This encounter revealed not only Jacob's strength, but his weaknesses. It also strengthened Jacob's faith in God. Why would it not? All that occurred between Jacob and God would impact the nation of Israel going forward. Jacob's new name pointed to a nation that would struggle with God for the rest of the Old Testament. As the tribes came down, there was always conflict and dissension that started back in that family in the very beginning. It makes us think about our family and the struggles that we go through. And we have to thank God every day for the strength that he gives to us through our loved ones. I have a picture for the week, and most of you know I have more than one family. I got the family of the pictures I've been showing you every week since I've been here. We have 13, Carol and I have 13 grandchildren, and we could not be prouder grandparents. They all are growing up, and we're so proud of them. I say that to say that I have another family And it's a little different. But these people love me. They do. And they love me especially when I feed them. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming. Have a good week. We'll get a picture of us next time. Have a good week, everybody.
I've been in the hospital since you have seen